beautiful, gorgeous beings of light with Nic and Bean unscripted. Yeah, baby.
I'm Beanie.
I'm Nic.
We're going to take you on a journey of conversations that includes things like purple unicorns, aliens, real life stuff, and everything in between.
We can't wait to see where these conversations take us because I can guarantee you they're going to get pretty cray-cray.
Well, with you in the room, Nicola, anything can happen.
That is true. Thank you for joining us on our journey. If you have any input that you want to add to this channel, we would love to hear from you. In the meantime, let's get the show on the road. Welcome, beautiful members of our community. Thank you for joining us here today for our wonderful podcast.
Podcast number 12.
Number 12. Not that we're counting, but we potentially are, because we're excited that we've lasted 12. Woohoo! Now, I wanted to introduce our tremendous guest today. And this kind of unfolded in our own inquiry as to I work with people, and Leslie can clarify this for me, but I work with people who date other people whilst in a relationship, but they're not married. So I think there's a term because, so we can talk about that. But Leslie, we welcome Leslie today. Thank you for being here, lovely. Leslie is, I'm going to say,
thanks for having me.
is an expert in polyamorous relationships, which I've done a bit of research on it, which is where married couples have partners that are also married?
Not necessarily.
Okay.
That's actually it. Polyamory in its essence is the act of dating or having romantic relationships with multiple people, regardless of your marital status.
Okay.
And yeah.
Okay.
Right.
And so
with the consent and support of everyone involved.
Yeah, totally. And then but with Leslie, she is actually a coach in this field, which is amazing, and it was just serendipitous that we found you, and then you're a coach, and I was like,
you ticked all the boxes.
I was like, this is fucking perfect. And then, but also, I'm going to say a huge activist in a blow up factor of challenging the status quo of our conditional behavioral habits that happen in society. And I guess, which is amazing because I believe that everything really needs to be challenged from where we've come from because it's been so limiting and really, I guess, judgy in a lot of ways. And I mean, I have a really, I am so inquisitive about this, this kind of, relationship, primarily because I don't know how I would be able to facilitate it personally because I'm such an emotional tool bag. So I'm looking forward to understanding how to navigate this, these kind of constructs that are different from what we are normal, what has been normal, and I guess changing our beliefs because obviously growing up in what has been and very structured, and that it's to a man and a woman and is married, and you don't really deviate from that. It's forever. You can't not change. You have to be with that person forever. And I think again that is challenging. But first of all, tell us how this all came about in discovery that I'm polyamorous. What does that even mean? Like how did it all unfold?
Did it come out as that though? Because you would have, anyway. Like you don't wake up and go, oh, I'm polyamorous. It's like, oh, I'm setting up people, therefore let's put it under something.
Yeah.
Well, for me, and everyone's journey or awakening or revelation relating to polyamory is different. But for me, I kind of grew up around it. I'm not here to out anyone, but I had people in my life who I interacted with regularly who were living in an openly relating lifestyle. So it wasn't anything that was very new or challenging for me to wrap my head around initially. That said, I did have non-monogamous desires in high school and in my early 20s that I didn't always act on because I was like, yeah, I don't know. I feel like everyone around me is monogamous, so I'm gonna, if I'm dating someone who's monogamous, I guess I'm just living a monogamous lifestyle. But the real turnaround, well, actually, no, I did have some experience with dating multiple people before my married partner and I decided we were going to embark on a polyamorous journey together. But that turning point for us as a married couple was when a friend of mine came to visit us and stayed with us for a while during a time where my partner was really, really busy and really, really stressed.
Yeah.
And I found that I was having a really good time with this friend. And the connection that we were having developed into something a little more amorous. And I, floated the question to my partner at the time. I was like, look, do you have any issue with what you're witnessing here? And their reaction was kind of like, well, no, not really. Because it was clear there was something else happening that was beyond platonic friendship. And
were they too busy to feel it at all, or were they kind of aware that something was going on? Because you're all living in the same house at this point, right?
The friend was just visiting for a week.
Oh, yeah. Okay, gotcha.
Yeah. So my partner was really busy and honestly was just happy that I wasn't taking on their stress because there was someone else there to engage with, which was quite nice. Yeah. And from there, we had the conversation about, well, what if we really explore this whole idea of engaging romantically with people aside from each other and in a way that isn't going to be like us at the center and everyone else is just a piece of meat that we're experimenting on. Because that was something that I saw in, I grew up with polyamorous friends, people in open relationships and stuff like that. And I saw a lot of collateral damage, let's put it that way, from people just being treated like experiments.
And it's so, God, that's such a fucking critical point, because there's so, we spoke previously, in the ethics behind polyamorous, I think, is probably given it a bad name in a lot of ways. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, absolutely.
Bad behaviors.
Yeah, because polyamory falls under the umbrella of ethical non-monogamy, the focus on ethics is super important. That's one way in which polyamory differs from just cheating. Some people liken it to a way to just cheat on your partner, but out in the open, it's like, no. There's a difference, because cheating means that an agreement has been broken. It means that there's some sort of lying or deception happening. It means that there's something happening that is hurtful, that has crossed a boundary, that has not been agreed on previously. So cheating can happen within a polyamorous dynamic as well.
It's so you're saying it like it's anything really. Like if a normal everyday heterosexual couple, like the normest of normal, like they're all the same things really that should be in that as well, right? Like it's no different. It just becomes more complicated a little bit because there are more people involved. But the respect and the conversations and communications and honoring and everything like that really should be the same across the board in any relationship. That's what you're saying.
Absolutely.
Right. And people in that space will cheat, and they will do, like, not in the polyamorous space, in normal spaces, they still do all of those behaviors and have all those insecurities, etc., which you know, I guess I would love to know how you've personally handled that, or has that come up in your relationship with your marriage partner and also the other?
And yeah, and can I also ask, because your partner, obviously, well, I say obviously, was he, is it a he?
They.
Yeah. Did they grow up in a, were they familiar with this kind of relationship, or were they just, you know, so open? Because it's quite an open person that would contemplate this.
They were familiar with the concept, but they grew up with a very monogamous framework of relationships. And they did have some very valid questions at the start. Questions like, you know, is there something I'm doing that isn't enough for you?
Totally.
Or is there something that you want to seek out in someone else that means that I have done something wrong? And I explained to them, I said, no, it's nothing like that at all. In fact, when I was developing feelings towards this friend, I found that I think in a monogamous construct, that would be really uncomfortable. It's like, oh, I'm having feelings for someone I'm not supposed to. And there was a tiny bit of that, but there was mostly excitement because I could see that my partner could also see how happy I was just engaging naturally with this person in a way that was very flirty, very playful, very affectionate. And I was excited to talk to them about it more.
And what then happens? What would you do in hypothetically if they had have turned around and said, I can't handle it. Like, I can't deal with this. Like, did that ever come up as a conversation?
It was never a, no, we're not going to go there. My partner is also very philosophical. And by that, I mean, they teach philosophy professionally.
Right. Nice. Yeah,
and,
great.
You know, teach psychology and stuff like that.
Oh, wow.
Wow, that's so amazing.
They were very... Yeah. I think one way in which we were lucky was that when we got together, we had very similar values outside of that as well.
Wow.
Values about how people should be able to live freely. Values about how people should be able to live authentically and how it's okay to challenge society. I think because we connected on that deep core value of being open to living outside of norms, we were well positioned to have that conversation in a way that wasn't destructive to our relationship. And not all couples have that privilege. And I recognize that.
Yeah, that's
and
incredible.
I've worked with so many people like that.
Yeah, that, I mean,
yeah, because it would be really disingenuous. It would be really disingenuous for me to, you know, have a couple on my couch struggling with this and say, oh no, just do this, just think about it this way, that way, blah, blah, blah. You know, it worked for us, it should work for you. It's like, no, everyone is different. Everyone's struggles are different. Everyone's tolerance for jealousy is different. Everyone's tolerance and way of navigating their own insecurities is different.
I guess
when you have a partner saying, I'd really like to explore romantic connections with other people, that can really challenge your own self-esteem, but we can learn from those things as well.
Yeah, I was going to say, it sounds like, I mean, I would imagine it's a lot of shadow work. Like, it would be a lot of self-discovery of those insecurities, which Beanie asked about before, about managing those insecurities, or how do you get used to that twinge factor of jealousy that would probably, I mean, for me, would fucking definitely rear its head, you know, like
I think like there's such, what you just said before though too, like there's such a, even with your clients, like it's such an opportunity to delve deeper into selves, right? So whether it's a polyamorous coach or a whatever, psychologist or anything, like they're all just opportunities to look at that shadow and then have the healthy boundary around it and respecting of self and respecting of others, right? And then you can just find out. There's so much more that you would find out, I can imagine, in that space, just from the like Nic said, like the shadows and the triggers. Like there's so much growth that we could have in that space. And then of course we all have that right to turn around at the end of the day and say, well, I do want this, or I don't want this, or at least not at the moment, or whatever. And then that's a whole new level of working together. But I could imagine if a couple was open to even just go down that path, they may both end up deciding that it's not for them. But the depth and connection that they've gained from even allowing that as a possibility into a conversation of freedom for each other and the other, or whatever it is, to me is like, I just get shivers as I think about it like that, and tears. That's so beautiful to even, like, that's relationship exploding, you know, in a good way.
Yeah, absolutely. And I've seen this happen so many times, even with work with monogamous couples or monogamous individuals who are having communication troubles in their relationships. Polyamory doesn't require that everyone just turn into a completely different person with a completely different sensibilities, right? So when monogamous couples are looking to branch out, to open up, so to speak, even those discussions about agreements and their expectations, those things are crucial, whether they're opening up or not. A lot of couples, and I'm speaking in a very couple-centric way when I talk about this particular issue, but we also need to understand polyamory isn't just about the core couple. A lot of monogamous couples skip over those questions. Like, what is cheating for us? What are our boundaries? What are our agreements? How, because that affects people on a friendship level as well. One thing that I often compare it to is, or use as an example, is say you're in a kind of standard issue heterosexual monogamous pairing, and you have a close friend at work who becomes, you know, your work wife or your work husband. How comfortable are you with those concepts? How comfortable are you with your partner going out to coffee or going out for lunch with someone they work with? Does that trigger a whole lot of jealousy within you? Does that change the way you view your partner or the strength of your relationship? Sometimes people will just keep those friendships and keep those other connections completely closed because they're afraid of upsetting their partner, because they're making assumptions about that person's reaction. Those assumptions might be completely correct, but by actually opening up and having the conversation, you can discover so much more about what other people in your life actually bring to you. And just because they might happen to be like a member of your preferred sex, that doesn't necessarily mean there's a sexual component behind it. Some people, sorry, go ahead.
Well, I was going to ask, how do you know what's a fair boundary?
God, that's got to be a moving target, doesn't it, for everyone?
Like say for example, you know, you go, okay, well, this is my boundary because I feel like, you know, how do you know that it's fair? Like, how do
To really get clear on the boundaries requires first making sure that you're differentiating between a boundary and a rule. Rules impact other people. Boundaries are about ourselves. So if I say that one of my boundaries is that I will not date someone who is, you know, brand new to the concept of polyamory, which actually is kind of a boundary that I have, it's because I know how it makes me feel to have to guide someone through that in a way that they will then thank me for later, but then choose monogamy when they, you know, pick their favorite person they're dating. I hate that. It's horrible.
Yeah.
So that's a boundary that I have around myself.
Is there an element of that you don't want to hurt? Like if you're bringing someone into your relationships, then if they're new and let's say immature, but not in a way of like just immature in that knowing of of the concept, then that can be very distracting and disruptive for the other people that you're in relation with, right? Like as well. So there's that consideration too, like.
Absolutely. And there are terms for this as well. I'll give you an example. One of the vocabulary items that you learn in the polyamory community is called cowgirling or cowboying. And that's when a person comes into a polyamorous dynamic with the intention of removing that person from their core relationships and kind of like bringing them back into monogamy with just them. It's like, that person's married, or that person's seeing other people, or that person's whatever, but I'm going to slip in there, play polyamory for a while, but what I'm really doing is trying to pull them into a monogamous relationship with myself.
That's so true.
So the way that connects to your question is really partner selection is crucial.
Yeah.
And then, so going back to the rule, because I really love that. So there's boundary and then there's rule. So what's a fair rule? Like, how do you determine that?
One theory in kind of polyamorous theory is that rules are just not okay.
Wow. What does that mean? Well, you can't put rules on me. Is that the thing?
Yeah. And it seems it's overly simplistic to say it that way, because some people, like, rules are like hard and fast things, right? Some people will say, okay, well, we have a rule, especially when couples are involved. We have a rule where you can't spend the night with anyone else, because that's our rule.
Gotcha.
It's like, okay, but you've now placed that restriction on anyone else that person is connecting with. So rather than saying, well, this is a rule, it's a rule, that's it, the end, it's worth having that conversation and pulling out the feelings and things behind it that make it more of a, well, actually, it's a boundary that I have for myself. And if that sort of thing happens, I'm going to respond in a particular way for my own self-preservation, rather than like, okay, well, if you break this rule, that's it, you're out. It's like, okay, well, it's not unreasonable to say, well, let's talk about how we feel about spending the night at someone else's place. And really really squeezing out the emotional details around that conversation is more valuable than just saying, well, these are our rules, take it or leave it. With rules, there's an inflexibility there. So you can kind of see where rules and boundaries might overlap in a conversation.
It's almost like a hard no. Like boundaries are like, let's discuss them and go deeper and work out what is okay and isn't okay for ourselves and others, and more respectful. And a rule's just like, no way.
I guess it's a sense of protection. But I guess,
she's
one actually. One example of something that people kind of might consider a fair rule is like using protection.
Yeah.
But even the way that is discussed matters.
Yeah.
That's fucking hardcore. That challenges me like no one else. One else.
So Nic was very challenging. It's interesting every time that she asks you a question, she goes, so if we're talking about fair and everything, like how to be fair in something, I have a question. You talked about cowboying or cowgirling. What other terminologies? Because I'd love people and listeners to learn as much as they can in polyamory. And I just feel like that a 45-minute podcast or YouTube video is never going to cover it all, because it's so complex. And there's so many, I can imagine so many rabbit holes, because there is in humans and in any relationship. So this one, like, you know, there'd be people that listen and they just don't know, I could never do that. And they're close to it. And like you said, and Nic said, because we're brought up in such a template, and we are just templates, right? So you were brought up around other people so you were introduced to it. So you've kind of got that flexibility in your spongy little pre-7 mind, whereas we're all like Nic said, stay together forever. Anyway, blah, blah. So I can imagine it would be hard for a lot of people. What I would love to know, because I think it'd be fun and interesting for people, is what are the terminologies, like really common ones that are used in polyamory, that if you were in polyamory, you'd know. So one, not judgy, but soccer mum could listen to this and go back to her other soccer mums and go, you know what I learnt the other day, and have some terminology that gets thrown around the soccer field of the 8-year-olds. Just to make Saturday morning,
there's so many. There are so many, but one that comes to mind immediately, I'm looking at your Zoom background there. Unicorns. Yeah. One of the most common mistakes that couples, again, speaking very couple-centric here, that couples make when they decide to open up their relationship is to say, especially heterosexual couples, is to say, okay, we've got this man, we've got this woman. She's bisexual. Let's find a girlfriend. Let's find a third. She will be with us. She will love us. Ideally, she won't date anyone else. She'll be attracted to both of us. She'll be intimate with both of us, and it's going to be wonderful. That's not how things work. We call that person, that woman, a unicorn because it's almost like a mythical creature.
Too good to be true.
It's not that it's impossible. I mean, it does happen, but to go like right out the gate and saying, oh, we're going to find a third. First of all, that person is going to be collateral damage. That person is quite likely to be subject to some sorts of arbitrary rules that you've put together. When that person, or if that person decides that they're more attracted to one of you, how is that going to impact the other one? Right. And are you going to say, oh, this is causing tension between us, we need to just discard this person and thank them for being a tool in our own personal development journey? That happens so much.
How many times?
And people need to... people need to be mindful of how they treat other people as tools in their own personal development journeys.
And I think people aren't honest too, right?
Like constantly shouting about.
Yeah, like people aren't honest. I think people find it hard going into those situations when they've never delved into their own boundaries and even understanding what they are. So their shadows are going to come into that space. Someone will be the submissive one in that space and not really expressing their needs through fear of loss. And watching something else play out in front of them as a connection that they want to be okay with because they want to feel that way, but how many people are taught to be in touch with their emotions and even understand what respecting another is like, and listening and feeling and considering. So I know in the past, in like years and years ago in my clubbing days and stuff, it was that like everyone takes drugs and, you know, threesomes were an easy thing to do. And it never bothered me because I was all the third person, like, see you later before the sun comes up kind of thing. And I could see the relationship people having an issue with it. Do you know what I mean? Because I was the female and obviously it was with a male and a female, and the female always felt like they needed to talk to me later about it. Like, I need to talk to you, especially if it was, friend or known person, because they were like, what does this mean? And I'm like, it doesn't mean anything, and would shut it down because I was emotionally like not available back then, which is why they happened in those situations. So when they came to actually turn it into, I was like, whoa, that's not what we're doing here,
Can I ask, is there like a checklist, like, you know, like a checklist, like if you were to go, okay.
Printout. Do you have a printout?
Like if you were to go, okay, I'm considering, okay, because there's a couple of things, right? There's a couple of things, you know, you explain that a very common scenario, right? Very, very common, very common. And then there's another scenario where you're in a marriage and it's not working that great. And you come up with a solution and you're like, well, maybe their needs aren't to be met through that person. Maybe it would be good if you go meet someone else to, you know, to, let's say sex, for example. It's a common thing. Yeah. I'm going to say in woman-man heterosexual relationship, the woman doesn't want to have sex anymore. She's fucking over it. I'm over it. And so the guy would like to have sex. And you go, mate, go out there. I give you permission, you know, blah, blah, blah. Would you recommend, there's two questions. Is there a checklist that someone would go, okay, am I this? Can I do this? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. You go tick, tick, tick. Okay, I'm suitable for polyamorous. And you put it to person and they tick, 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 tick. And they go, yep, I'm suitable. And then the other question is, would you, with that scenario,
so many questions.
With that scenario, would you go, that's safe to explore polyamorous?
Polyamory.
Or polyamory. Now, hold on. And one other thing. There's polyamorous and then there's
polyamory.
Polyamory.
Well, polyamory is the overall concept.
No. You're thinking about, you said the same thing.
You're thinking
about polygamy.
Oh, what is it?
Yeah. Polygamy.
Yeah.
That's illegal. Yeah. That's illegal because
in Australia
because
you can't have more than one wife.
That's right. Gotcha.
Yeah.
Polyamorous.
Polygamy is specifically about marriage. And it's often,
and usually heterosexual marriage, right?
Yeah. And there are often a lot of issues of consent and power imbalances related to polygamy.
Yeah. It's like when the man has like 8 wives or something, which I couldn't imagine anything worse. Imagine having 8 relationships.
Yeah. She probably gets excited with her philosophical husband.
Anyway, let's keep it on track. Do you know what any of the questions that Nicola asked? Do you still remember any of them?
You asked about a checklist and like readiness for polyamory.
Yeah.
I wouldn't call it a checklist so much. Like what I do is I do ask a series of questions, but it's not really for the purpose of ticking boxes. It's really for the purpose of starting a conversation about like jealousy, like what kinds of scenarios make you feel jealous. Yeah. If that were like a tick box thing, some people say like, oh, well, I can't be polyamorous because I get too jealous. It's like, well, no. Polyamory is not only for people who never experienced jealousy. Jealousy is something that can be navigated.
Yeah.
Jealousy is something that can teach us a lot about ourselves and why our insecurities get triggered when our partner is doing something with someone else. And that's definitely something that I've experienced.
I think you've been the one that felt pain from a partner doing something with someone else.
Yeah, little twinges. I've probably felt envy more than jealousy with my partner. And what I mean by that is with jealousy, there's this kind of like little fear that you might lose this person, that they might choose someone else over you, or that, it's like a fear of loss. And for me, the way that's come up is like, it's never gotten to the point where I felt like I was going to lose my partner. It's like, it's never been an issue for us, but there have been times where they'd, match with someone on a dating app or something that I found had all these qualities that triggered some insecurity in me. Yeah. And it's like, oh, wait a minute. So that's the thing that's bothering me. That's the thing that I feel I'm missing in myself. That's the thing I need to work on.
Yeah. Amazing.
Yeah. But with envy, because one of my partners is long distance, I'm here in Australia and he's in New Mexico. when my partner would date locally, or someone who they were with for a few years, actually, it's like, oh, I'm going to go to see such and such. We're going to go here or there for a weekend. We're going to go camping or whatever. It's like, I want to go camping. I want to like have someone around where I can like just hang out at their place for the weekend. See, that's envy. That's not jealousy. Because what they're doing is something that I'd like to be doing too, with my partner who lives overseas. It's not about fearing that I'm going to lose my partner.
But why wouldn't you just do it together?
Because he's like on the other side of the world.
No, like with your with your current partner that you live with.
Yeah.
Why wouldn't you just go camping together? Like,
I mean, we would do other things together. We're going out for dinner and having parties and stuff like that, even like small dinner parties with someone I was dating at the time. But I'm also very conscious of the fact that their relationship is their relationship. It's not anything that I'm a part of. So they have a pairing. If I'm not dating the person that they are dating, then I'm not part of that equation. If we get to know each other and we hang out and stuff, that's something that might develop organically over time. But it's important to note that there can be a lot of problems caused when there's a rush to make everything equal.
Gosh. And two, I can imagine for like, does it ever happen where, like Nic said, and I know this isn't what she was asking, but like if you were closer, right, and your partner was in a relationship with someone else, and then you turn around and you go, oh, I want to come to dinner too, or I want to do this too. Like, is that a rule? Like, or because that would happen in some relationships, right? Someone would go, oh, you guys are having fun, I want in on that.
That's called couples privilege. And it's not welcome in polyamory. When a member of a couple says that, like, I have an inherent right to be part of whatever you're doing, that's like saying that person's time, that person's desire to connect with you isn't as important as mine.
Yeah.
And that's very disrespectful to that other person and to the partner. When you put your partner in a position where they have to, yeah, exactly. If a couple is kind of prone to those sorts of requests or demands, it could be that what they want isn't a polyamorous relationship, but that they maybe, if what they're looking for is to engage with multiple people sexually, it might be better to hire a sex worker. Yeah.
Because they won't have that emotional attachment per se.
Yeah. And because the expectations and the boundaries are crystal clear.
Is that what you'd recommend with the other question I had, which is about a married couple that aren't getting their needs met, be it sexually or whatever? It is a common thing with women mostly. To go, oh, maybe suit polyamorous. Would you recommend that as a scenario?
It really depends on their context. One common mistake that people make is trying to use polyamory or opening up as a way to fix a problem that exists within a marriage. If the issue that's there is that there's like a level of sexual incompatibility, like that's worth a discussion. It doesn't mean that these people shouldn't explore polyamory. In fact, it could be quite a healthy exploration of polyamory in that situation. If one person says like, look, I'm not feeling very like sexually motivated by anything, and I think it'd be great if you engaged sexually with other people, and I would support that. I would be okay with that. That's one thing. Like, that's okay. There still needs to be a clear conversation around agreements and expectations. It's like, are you supporting? And I use the word supporting here specifically because it's more than just allowing. Are you supporting your partner in just connecting sexually with other people? Or are you supporting them in connecting potentially romantically with other people?
Yeah.
Because if it's just about supporting that sexual connection, that's not polyamory. That's having an open relationship.
Yeah. So polyamory is different.
And that's perfectly valid
deeper.
as well.
And so
it's a deeper relationship. You're saying if it's polyamory, it's an actual relationship. It's not just a physical interaction, is the difference.
It's beyond sexual. It's more like emotionally intimate.
And I know when we chatted last time, briefly, you mentioned that a lot of polyamorous relationships aren't even sexual. It's just a relationship that someone has. So then what would people listening might just go, then, well, why isn't that just a friendship?
Well, that's actually one of the biggest benefits of polyamory in my life. Sometimes that's what it becomes. When I have dated people where there is that openness to engage sexually, but then you kind of find that natural landing point of like, I don't really want to get down with you in the bedroom, but I really want to play board games with you like every single day. Or I really want to talk to you about like some random pop culture topic like all the time.
Yeah.
Or you find that you've got this point of connection that is special and unique within that dynamic. Then that could just become a really valuable friendship. I've definitely had that happen in my life. But those friendships wouldn't be what they are if we hadn't been open to like letting them see where they would follow naturally. I've had situations where I did connect sexually with someone, but it was like after the fact that we were like, yeah, no, let's just hang out and watch TED Talks. And that's part of the beauty of authentic communication.
An authentic relationship too.
Yeah, absolutely. Like having that authentic relationship where it's not like, okay, this person is a romantic partner, this person is a friend. That means that with this person, I do A, B, and C, and with this person, I do, D, E, and F.
Yeah.
Because that's what's expected. It's like, well, says who? Says who?
And that's a really good thing, isn't it? Like, says who? So every person, every relationship, like create your own foundation of what you want and your own foundation of what you agree on. It's like, rather than just that general blanket rule from, I don't know, I see a table of old men sitting around deciding what we should and shouldn't do with our lives most of the time. So it's no different in here. Like, and if I hope that image makes people go, ew, I don't want like people like that deciding who I should and shouldn't sleep with. In fact, I keep them out of the bedroom. So, I think it's beautiful in that sense.
Yeah. Okay. I've got a couple of questions that are brewing. So going back to open, having an open relationship is what?
Having an open relationship is engaging in non-monogamy in a way that is primarily sexual.
Right.
Okay, primarily sexual. So it's not emotional. It's just get out.
It's the husband going to, not always, but the husband going to the massage for a soapy.
Well, that's something. Well, I mean, that can be part of it. It's basically saying, like, we support each other in having sex with other people, but the intimate intellectual side, that connection, that's something that we reserve for us.
Okay.
Or that's something that we don't desire from other people.
Okay, great.
Because it's not to say that one is better than the other, but it's important to be clear on which one is actually your style.
Yeah. Okay, next question. In my experience, there's always someone that kind of loses out from what I've seen. Like, I understand where you're coming from, like polyamorous, like, you know, intellectually reflective, emotionally. I almost think it's like it's like an emotional intelligence and ability to do stuff, right? Like I understand that kind of capability to have a positive framework to this kind of relationship is really beneficial. But in my experience, that lack of consideration or even ability to look at yourself is so not there that one of them always kind of loses out. And what do you say to that? I mean, is that, yeah.
I think
someone's always gets hurt, I guess.
Relationship dynamic, someone.
Sorry.
I think in any kind of relationship dynamic, there's a risk of someone losing out. Any monogamous relationship that did not end in till death do us part could be defined as one that has, you know, failed by societal standards, where someone has lost out. And it's not something that's unique to ethical non-monogamy. Sometimes when people stay together just because they are a monogamous pairing and that's what their value is, people are still losing out, staying within those relationships.
That's a really good point.
Yeah, because there's definitely such a thing as toxic monogamy. And a lot of that is powered by the things that we as a society kind of let people get away with in the name of monogamy that are actually really toxic and damaging behaviors. There's this idea that, like, if you're not jealous when your partner gets hit on by someone else, then you must not really love them, because jealousy equals love. And if they're not jealous, then they must not love me. And if they act in a way that's very toxically jealous, it's just because they love me so much. It's like the reason that they insist on going through my phone messages, it's just because they love me. It's just because they want to protect the relationship. It's like, no, it's like the reason they don't allow me to have close friends of my preferred gender is because they just want to protect us. They just want to make sure that I'm not going to fall for someone else. And it's like they put all of these barriers around someone in the name of monogamy, in the name of so-called like love and protection, that can be really emotionally abusive. And it can lead to physical abuse as well. Someone gets whistled at on the street and their partner goes and beats the crap out of them, and it's like, oh, he loves me so much. It's like, no, this person is a sociopath.
Yeah.
But it's like things like that are sometimes seen as like gestures of romance and protection, whereas in polyamorous dynamics, people will kind of look at two people who are married to someone else in a room together who just happen to be naked and fondling each other as something bad. It's like, well, no, if everyone's consenting and everyone's supportive of the dynamic and no one's getting hurt in that sense, then why is that any less respectable than the person who's going to have violent outbursts in the name of protecting their relationship?
Yeah.
Like, it doesn't make sense.
Or even having disconnected like sexual encounters and stuff, you know, like there's a lot of relationships that people will switch off to do what they need to do in the name of relationship. And it's, you know, I know a lot of relationships that I do kinesiology by trade, so I have like interactions with lots of people about relationships, and there is a lot of like dominance and submissiveness and no choice and things like that happen all the time. So it's I just wrote down before what you said, like toxic monogamy, like it's such a good statement. Can I ask you if you got it?
Yeah, I've got another question. And that is, when you have a reoccurring thing that kind of just doesn't dissipate, like you're just working like a dog going, fuck, I'm just wanting to feel better about a scenario that doesn't seem to dissipate. What what would you say to, what do you do in that situation? Like an insecurity that doesn't piss off and you just like, it's just a constant Groundhog Day of feeling twinged, or, you know, what do you do?
It really depends on what is triggering that feeling.
Mm.
Like if you are, for example, a partner in a relationship who is, your partner is seeing other people and you just have this nagging feeling of insecurity that just won't go away.
Mm.
That's when we do a lot of deep dive into what is triggering that. So we look at some of the like historical things that might be triggered about that. It's like, does this make you feel the same way? Is there something else in your past that has made you feel similarly? Or what is it that you're actually afraid is going to happen? What is it about this other person that you feel makes them somehow more valuable than you? Is there something within you that isn't being validated that makes you seek out validation from other people and like from your partner? Do you feel threatened by that partner engaging with other people because you feel like you're going to lose them, and then therefore you're going to lose some sense of your own identity? It's a lot of deep work into just building up that self-confidence and self-esteem again.
I love, you know, I've had such a resistance, and it's literally just dropped in not long ago, but I've had such a resistance to this type of relationship, like, and purely because of protection, I've realized, because I haven't been wanting to really go deep in these areas, but I've just realized that I'm now open to receiving this if it was to be presented to me, which feels nice. It feels like, okay, well, if it was to be presented to me, if Beanie was like, okay, yep, I would love to, you know, discover this area, I'd be like, you know what, I'm going to be open, and I'm just going to allow it to unfold. And that feels nice for me. And it's just been really interesting to watch myself in, you know, those paradoxical things that we're shown in our life, and what is normal and what isn't normal. And if it deviates from that, then how am I going to be? Am I going to be safe? Am I going to still be feeling enough? Which is a big part of it, right? Like feeling enough as a human being to still be able to hold space and experience this opportunity that that may be presented to you. So
that's nice for you.
It feels fucking great, Leslie. Feels great.
Yeah. Okay. When you have that degree of self-love, that's going to make your internal world better, and that's going to nurture whatever relationship you have with a primary partner or any other partners that might enter that constellation.
I think that's beautifully freeing for you.
Yeah, it is.
And me, apparently, because you'll be okay with it. I would love to know quickly before we go, because we do have to wind it up. Can we have three things that are polyamorous and three things that aren't?
Oh, three things that are and three things that aren't.
Like a spitball, like three things that aren't polyamorous, three things that are, to close it up, so everyone's got some kind of like, remember the soccer mums.
Okay, well, I guess I'll start with the three things that are not, I guess. Polyamory is not an excuse. Polyamory is not an inability to commit to a partner. Because with polyamory, you actually, it might sound backwards, but you have to have the ability to commit to a number of people.
Yeah.
And that means committing time, committing emotional energy, committing a lot of things. It's not all fun and games. Like there's a lot of commitment, there's a lot of communication.
Yeah.
Polyamory, another thing that's not polyamorous is someone cheating on a partner and then confessing and then saying, hey, let's open up because I guess we're just polyamorous now. Yeah. Another thing that's not polyamorous. I've never like had to quite think of it in exactly this way, but
it's okay if you don't have 3. My Virgo mind will be okay with it.
Okay. I mean, there's so many ways to do polyamory wrong.
Okay. So then what?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So then what's the other 3?
Yeah.
What is polyamory in 3 statements? We've kind of gone over it a bit, but.
Okay. Polyamory is a self-love journey. Yeah, it really, really is.
Yeah.
Polyamory is I'm trying to think of like scenarios.
I was going to say, from our discussions, it's a
relationship builder more than
it's a communicative, respectful.
Oh, it's a communication party.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's a huge communication party.
And
it's also a way to, it's a way to discover what really connects you with the people you connect with romantically. When I think
that's a great point.
I guess one last point related to that is people often say like, doesn't dating other people take away from your relationship, your marriage? Because, you know, we've got a kid as well and stuff. And I often say to them like, no, it actually creates a more distilled, almost purer version of our marriage, in that my partner is not a captive audience for all of my little quirks and interests that they have absolutely no interest in. I don't have to drag them around to do stuff with me that they just don't want to do because like, oh, it's the nice thing to do and it's what couples do. It's like, no, okay, you don't want to go to this gig with me. Like, I know who will want to.
Yeah.
So it's a way that we can really like fully live these different aspects of our personality with other people who connect authentically.
Without projecting your shit onto them, right? Like, if you loved me, you'd come and do this thing with me. And it's like,
yeah,
you know, some people want to play with Barbies, some people want to play with trucks, and some people want to put Barbie in the truck, you know, like you shouldn't force Ken to be driving the truck or anything like that. So we're all different. So I think it's beautiful what you just said then.
I think that's
being able to get it from someone else in any way, even if it's just, can we go to the movies because my partner doesn't like to? You know, my partner hates the movies, and it's like, well, if you love me, you'd come to the movies with me because I like that. And it's like, why do we put so much pressure on people to be something? I think I'm really grateful for this conversation today, because I really hope when people listen to it, they see the growth that is in it for people and understand that polyamory is not just throwing the keys in the bowl and having
that's swinging. That's entirely different.
Totally different thing. And being open to the opportunities of what can come in for relationships. I think if we contain ourselves in this space and go, no, I can't do any of that. And I'm in no way saying that this is for me, because I don't feel that need to do it. I don't feel that urge to do it. I'd like to think that I'm open to anything, because I think a lot of people lie to themselves about their happiness. I think they lie to themselves about what they do and don't like. And I think they don't lie because they don't even know what those questions are sometimes to even ask themselves. So to me, from this conversation, I feel like you've described polyamory as something that can be incredibly beautiful. It can be incredibly respectful. It can bring on deeper connections and communications within couples themselves and the couples around that. So I'm really grateful for this conversation today, and I hope other people can see it that way, like not to frame it so much they can take what they want, but just to see the depth behind it, in an essence of allowing respectfully and having healthy boundaries and rules as well, but more healthy boundaries.
Respect and communication will get you will take you very far in the world of ethical non-monogamy.
I love that. Thank you so much, Leslie.
Yeah.
Thank you, Leslie.
Thank you.
Really, really enjoyed it. And if everyone out there enjoys it too, please like and subscribe and share with other people. It's a great conversation, and we get the most interesting people that we believe who we'd love to talk to, and hopefully you love to hear from them too. So to keep the love alive, keep you two loving us as much as we want you to love us. Like, subscribe, share with your friends. And we are also on Spotify as a podcast.
I just want to also mention that if you do connect with Leslie and you want to know more about what she can do for yourself in terms of that growth and expansion of the possibility of polyamorous relationship, or just with yourself and the discovery, Leslie will have all the links for you below,
because she is a coach that will help through all of those things I talked about before too, right? Like
yeah.
more than just
absolutely.
You don't have to be polyamorous to come and see you, do you? Like, it can be questions, someone curious and things like that, right? You seem to have a lot of wisdom on life in general, so relationships.
Yeah, I work with people on a variety of issues. Polyamory is just one wing of living an authentic life.
Yeah.
Outside of what society might consider normal.
Yeah.
I love that. Amazing. I love that.
Thank you for bringing and broadening our horizons and
my mind
for others.
It's just blowing up.
Thank you.
It's blowing up. 44 years of fucking rigidity is just being smashed. I'm ready. Bring it on.
Excellent.
I'll text you in a week.
I'm here when you need me.
That's true.
Oh, I'll check in.
Thanks so much, Leslie. It was an absolute pleasure.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thanks.